trust and 6K.
Hey, what's up, you guys? So it's been a minute since I posted something on the YouTube channel, but I just wanted to come at you guys to this week essentially, and kind of describe what our views are, kind of give you guys a taste of what our weekly prep calls look like in our mentorship. Basically just kind of go over this stuff with you guys so you're prepared alongside our private community. Right. So last week, we had this bias to basically come down lower and see this bounce. We had that basically labeled or marked out before the fact, as always, right? And yeah, we were able to capitalize on this. Some were able to capitalize on this this bullish bounce, right? Just because we see price looking like it, it's got this push higher, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have an extended move, for the long term, right? We still have a lot of geopolitical scenarios going on. We have a lot of, crazy things going on in the world. So, yeah, so essentially what we do on Sundays, we just basically reflect on what happened the previous week, kind of touch on, did our markup play out, or did our bias deliver? Or did it not deliver, right? And essentially, for the past, multiple months, I can't even remember how long it's been at this point, but we've been pretty on point, and we also have some recordings to prove that. I also have some recordings touching on the demo account I showcase for YouTube. Of course, that's for legal reasons, right? I'm not licensed to give anyone trade advice, but essentially from over here, we've been pretty on point. Maybe even before that, before this jump, we were able to anticipate this was going to happen as well because of interest rate announcements, things of that sort. And yeah, so coming back to what we have this week, like I said, we were able to anticipate this drop here. And let me actually go to this, and we can kind of see. We anticipated the drop occurring before it happened. All right. This was on the 30th of May. All right. We also anticipated for DXY, depending on how it reacted in this area, right? This is an order block. We also seen that this was a fair value gap up here, which price actually pushed up into it and gave a nice sell-off, creating that bullish run from this breaker here in Nasdaq. Okay, so one thing that I always tell my mentorship, right, and the students we have in our private community about bias is that you got to look at what price is doing right now. Where do we come from? Essentially, what do you think price is going to do next? And it can only do one of two things. Price is only either creating an imbalance, rebalancing an imbalance, or it's attacking some form of liquidity in the form of equal highs, equal lows, single highs, and single lows. Pretty much what ICT basically pushes, for everyone to focus on. A lot of people overcomplicate this because it seems a little too simple to kind of categorize things in that way. But it's really that simple. Price can also sit in a consolidation as well. So, and if you can't figure out one of these things, right? If you can't look at the chart and determine one of those things, then you probably got to wait. At least I wait, right? Personally, if I can't come to something concrete and have some logic behind that, like some logical reasoning based on those two modes of delivery, or three, if you want to include consolidation, I just sit and wait. Because there's always another day to trade. There's always going to be opportunity. It's just a matter of, whether you can pull it out or not. And if you could hang around long enough, over leveraging and all this crazy nonsense that we are all plagued with at the beginning, is definitely, it's not necessary. You know what I mean? There's no reason to be in a rush. you know we all have goals and things that we want to accomplish. But, you know, the quickest way out of this business is to over leverage, over trade, and, you know, throw away your rules and not be disciplined, you know, and be in such a rush that you make illogical decisions, you know, so you always got to keep that in mind. But yeah, as far as, you know, as far as this week goes, right, we were able to call this, right? We figured it was going to drop down, come and rebalance this before it, you know, if it was going to continue higher, that's what it would have done first, because price can't just keep going in one direction without doing a pullback, right? And you know, some of you guys may be aware, pullbacks are to either rebalance something, or it's just the algorithm offering price at better levels for them to get in. Like in a sell, it wants to push price into a premium, okay, before smart money or before the algorithm pushes price in whatever direction it's you know, programmed to send it in, okay. And just a quick like visual representation of that. That's why the 62% retracement level is so important, right? ICT talks about the 62% retracement level in optimal trade entry because he's basically pointing people to premium and discount price levels depending on your bias, okay? And that's really important for people to understand. And you could see why he didn't really add in certain pieces of information, because, you know, he doesn't have to give everything to everybody. You know, that's plenty of information. And frankly, most people overcomplicate anything and everything, okay? So, you know, always try to keep things simple, right? So moving on. Like I said, we were able to call this retracement lower. As far as what price looks like right now, we can have one of two things occur depending on what the DXY does. If the DXY wants to continue being bullish, I believe this is what the setup is potentially going to look like. This, you know, assumed high that's created here, pushing into this order block to potentially fall lower, that that would potentially be a high of the week for a sell, okay? If that doesn't play out, we also, or if that plays out and pushes us lower, but we still bounce, you can see that this is the daily equilibrium for the current range that we're trading in on the daily chart. Okay, so we have our premium levels up here and we have our discount levels down here. Price could very well push lower, hit this lower fair value gap. Like ICT says about the fair value gaps, if you have one that's upper and one that's lower, you always got to consider the fact that it may push down into that other or second fair value gap before it makes a decision or, you know, gives up the real move. So that's a potential, you know, scenario as well. We could end up pushing lower depending on what the DXY wants to do from the levels that we are currently trading at. Okay, we did break this swing high here. We did take sell side liquidity. Price did push higher. This is a weekly fair value gap from this this line to that line. And you can see from this fractal low to this fractal high, that's our range, essentially. That's our daily range. Okay, and if we're going to buy, or if there's going to be any bullish price action that occurs, it's gonna happen within this box down here. Okay, and as you can see, it's kind of doing that, but we don't know for sure just yet. You know, we never know for sure, but we don't have enough concrete evidence to believe that you know, one thing's going to happen over another. You can also see this midpoint here. This is equilibrium for this daily chart. Okay, for the given range from the most recent swing low to the most recent swing high. All right, so if price just hangs out around here, like ICT says, if price hangs around equilibrium, okay, there's a good chance of longer term consolidation occurring, you know, and that could be, you know, a week, a day, a couple months, you know, it just really depends. So for that, you know, with that statement, right, we got to wait till DXY is more clear in regards to what it is that it wants to do and where it wants to reach for, because we're at a reasonable level for price to end up going bullish from this fair value gap on the weekly. We're also at a level where we could consider price, you know, maybe looking to the downside. We have possible market maker sell model frameworks here as well, with these equal lows being the target here, and they're really obvious. So, you know, it'd be really logical for it to do that. We also have this candle here, this last down candle, that's a breaker. Okay, why is it a breaker? There's a high, there's a low. the high got ran really aggressively. We also pierced some weekly highs from previous price action, maybe like a year ago or whatever. But at the same time, you know, when price punched above there, it ended up coming back real quickly, right? Aggressive breakdown below this. So if price was going to sell off, this would actually be a good example of the YouTube model ICT is teaching, but on the daily chart, okay? Because it took buy side liquidity, it accelerated aggressively to the downside. There's a fair value gap there. We're returning back to that. It's also in a premium price level. So it would make a lot of logical sense for price to want to fall lower if that's what it does choose to do, okay? And that would in turn create bullishness in the Nasdaq, all right, or all the indices essentially, okay? So being that we're hovering around equilibrium, I personally want to see some more animated price action to give me a more solidified, concrete directional bias, you know, longer term. But even if we bounce around in like a consolidation and all the other assets consolidate, we could still operate within the confinements of you know, a consolidation range. We just got to lower our targets and make sure that we find our models performing, you know, efficiently, right? Showing you the signatures and price. So with that being said, that's kind of my take on DXY, okay? And in regards to NASDAQ, depending on what happens with that DXY chart, one of two things can occur, or one of three things can occur, okay? Either consolidation, we could just bounce around, or we can push into this fair value gap, or push into this fair value gap and continue bullishness. That would basically bring price down into a discount level. We also have very obvious targets. We have a daily order block. We also have these equal highs up here as well. We pushed through this little tiny fair value gap in here, so that got violated clearly. And then yeah, we have multiple targets up above, and we can also see these higher equal highs here. If there was a longer extended move, that could potentially be the draw on liquidity long term, right? Near term would be this order block and these equal low or equal highs, as well as this these, you know, this pair of fair value gaps up in here as well, okay? As you can see, price is also respecting, you know, in this fair value gap, it respected that 50% level. If price breaks through that 50% level, I mean, we can reasonably expect it to fill in this whole fair value gap, but if it breaks down below that, that would signal us to look for lower prices, and the bias would be short-term bearish, you know, until we got down into these levels. But if we do get a reaction from here, I mean, if it still respects the 50% of this daily fair value gap and this breaker, you know, we could reasonably expect price to bounce higher. I also think that, you know, I want to see this breaker candle here hold for me to have as much confidence as possible in the bullish bias. We also want to couple that with a bearish DXY. Okay, so these are all things you want to consider. All right. One thing that also kind of catches my attention, right? You see these highs here. All right, you see these highs here. This is bearish S&T divergence. Okay, with what we're seeing here. Okay. And we also ran this high. We hit this bearish order block. So if this swing low gets broken, we could reasonably expect that could also be the new YouTube model as well, performing, okay, for sells. All right, so this bearish S&T is definitely going to be useful for this week's analysis to determine bias, right? Because if we see heavier sell-offs occur and this low breaks and seems like things aren't going to be respected, we could reasonably expect it's going to attack the previous lows over here, okay? Let's actually go look at the Dow as well, kind of see what that looks like. So we have the same thing here, okay? So there's a cracking correlation at reasonable levels to expect potential bearishness, okay? But it's, you know, like I said, on the DXY, we're sitting at equilibrium on the daily chart, given the range that we have from the most recent swing low to the most recent swing high. And the most recent swing lows and most recent swing highs, the importance is only there if they're a fractal pattern, okay? Like, what is a fractal? It's a 3-bar pattern, lower high to the left, higher high in the middle, and then a lower high to the right. That's a fractal high. A fractal low is a higher low to the left, a lower low in the middle, and a higher low to the right. Okay, so that would be a valid fractal low or a valid, low or high structure, okay, to place your fib on, so you can, determine the range that you're currently trading in. All right, I hope that made sense. But yeah, so that's essentially my views on this week's price action and what it is that we're looking at, right? Also, you see these notes here. These equal lows will likely be purged for the next move higher to begin. Before a move higher takes place, if strength continues and weakness in DXY also continues, right? Then we also have, equal highs here that may be targeted for this week, okay, if we decide to continue bullish, which is just logical, right? And then, as I said, right, and outlined, we have potential draws on liquidity for bullishness would be this order block, and it would also be, these equal highs here and, these fair value gaps over here. That is if bullishness occurs, right? But there's a lot of if scenarios when it comes to Sunday's, analysis and stuff like that. You got to be prepared for whatever happens. You can't marry a bias. You have to always be open to flexibility, because if you're not flexible, then you're not going to be able to make the adequate changes that are necessary when you're proven wrong. Okay, you always got to consider that you may be wrong at any given time, and you got to accept that. Okay, perfection doesn't exist in our industry. All right, so just be able to see both sides. Have something that you're leaning towards, but then also, be able to remain flexible so you can adequately adjust when the time calls for that. Okay. But yeah, you can also see one last thing, right? Where do we come from, right? What started this move? We have a weekly order block here that's way far to the left. Zoom out so you guys can see that. Okay, we have this daily fair value gap that price punched below this low to accomplish. And then that's set off the move higher. We can go to the weekly chart so I can show you that order block more clearly. So you can see that order block here, okay? And it also respected the 50% of this order block here, which was also having a daily fair value gap inside of it. Okay, so there's overlapping confluences there in regards to point of interest identification, okay? That's also very, very important to understand and study, at least, right? Because that kind of, that reasonably gives you more confidence in a specific level, especially if you see something like this occur and you see some type of S&T divergence while we're pushing into a level like that, right? Like a level that we can reasonably expect to bounce from. That's how you can also validate whether a level is going to hold or not by using S&T divergence. Okay, when you're punching into a specific level, you could expect a reaction from, right? We can also see we have this fair value gap here as well that's kind of showing some rejection. Not too sure if that's going to hold, but we will see. We have our scenarios played out. We also see that there is a weekly order block here as well, which I am actually going to mark up because I didn't see that. So yeah, we could reasonably use this as another confluence as well, depending on what price chooses to do come Monday going into Tuesday. Okay, but yeah, so that's essentially my views on what could potentially happen this week, what I'm looking for, what me and my private community is going to be looking for. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything, please feel free to leave it down in the comments. And if you like what we do on this channel, or you like some of the content, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and gives us more confidence and motivation to continue to bring you guys whatever information we feel would help you guys. Okay. If you guys have any recommendations for videos or topics that you'd like to see, I'd also be honored to be able to touch on whatever it is that you guys struggle with. I'm always here to help. We do have a private community, but that doesn't mean that we're not here to help anybody and everybody who's willing to listen, and put their trust in us as well, right? So with that being said, you guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And let's get prepared to have another profitable week in the marketplace here at WMGFX. So with that being said, guys, I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Trust in 6K.